Hi, this is Duchess Robinson from 8 by 10 Design, Duchess.pro. And today, I know I haven't been recording, but there's a number of projects that we're working on. So, last week I created a, a booklet and a video specifically about how to submit your content to a web developer. And it's very important because it's a lot of people that have that situation, that have that issue about knowing what to put on their website and how to and what you need, because primarily, even more so now, people are online and they're checking for their resources. And I know we've said that like years and years ago, like, people are online now and you have to have an online presence and website and everything else like that. But I see people will do that, and depending on finances, they'll go the cheapest route possible, and in their mind, well, at least I have one up. Now, in my opinion, you do what you, and there are people out here that will do websites for a low price. And I've actually seen someone online, I think I referenced this years ago, that a website should not cost you no more than 500. Well, if you expect to get something lesser, of course. But in my field, usually I can charge what I want at this point of time in my life, depending on the client. So my pricing is flexible, and I need to hear what you need to see if we are a good fit, because I've struggled years and years on how to charge people. Sometimes it's too much, sometimes it's too less. But I found that in my wording and in my conversation, I know exactly what to expect from people, what they're supposed to receive, and I pretty much know if it's a fit or not. My thing is, you never want to undercharge yourself, specifically because you have bills, you have things that you have to do. If you're an adult, you have to be adulting. So basically, people will try to get a lesser price based off of those things, but I was always taught, people will pay your worth if they have it. People that don't have it and don't appreciate what you do will try to undercut you, because people who will pay will always understand that this is a service that I need. And one of the main things that I've been working on, and I've been following this particular path, is, an educated consumer is your best consumer. So before I even go into pricing and everything, I'm asking questions about what that person knows. Because if you can educate them and they understand what you have, the product, the service that you have, they'll understand your pricing better. Now, if they don't, and they're simply relying on what someone told them versus what they know, and all of those, their sister, brother, cousin built their website, and oh no, you shouldn't pay that. My sister, brother, cousin, Barbara can do it better. Stuff like that. You can hear that conversation prior to you literally working with that person, and you'll have that feeling, and you'll know, I'm going to have a problem with this person because they're relying on misinformation from somebody else or experiences from somebody else. So you can, if they're willing to hear and be educated. And I'm even thinking about, before I even get into a contract with you, you have to go through a workshop with me. So you'll understand what it takes, what it costs, all of those things before buying, before purchasing the service. I would suggest that some people, based on who they are, need something really quick. Now, if they need something quick, you have that conversation with them and give them an expected. If they say, oh no, when somebody says, oh no, I'm not paying that, let it go. Because I'm telling you, if you lessen your price, they're in the mindset that they want more than what you're doing, and they want you to do it all. I've seen it. I've had the conversations. I've had more arguments. No lie. I've had more arguments with, and I can't say arguments, disagreement with people I've charged much less to versus the people I've charged more to. The people I've charged less to will simply argue you down about, well, I could have got it done. And I had one person say, well, it ain't worth $100. I now look for that website. I don't see that for $100 no more, because you're not going to get nobody for $100 with my experience in what I'm trying to do for your website. So I've learned over the years, favors, and I'm not going to say relatives, because I've had some relatives I've done work for and they appreciate it. So you can't say, oh, you can't do business. It depends on which family member that you can do business with. But you primarily know based off of the conversation and what precedents you set before you charge them. I always tell people, if you don't know what to charge or what to do, look around. Now, I'll put people now in training. This is the payment you're going to have to pay. However, I'm going to walk you through and give you training information about your website and your marketing, because if they're in the point where they understand what their website can do, they're more open to paying more for the marketing, because they understand the importance and they know now it is not a bill, it's more of an investment. So when you can get your clients to the point where they understand that it is an investment, they can come to you when it's time to ask questions, because that's one of the main things I've had transition my business to. And just to give you all of I had no mentor. Ideally, you should always have a mentor in this field. The only mentor really that I had in there in this business was my grandmother. My mother had passed before I even started doing this, but primarily she worked in doing, desktop publishing and graphics in that capacity. So her putting them together, the technical portions and the attention to detail portions of it, was one of the things that I had to glean from and guide from. So, but when it came to deal with web design, I literally went back to school for marketing because I wasn't making the money. I knew I was very talented in it. So I went back to school and got my master's in internet marketing. And I had to do that and accelerate it because that's how my brain worked. Give me the information quickly. I think quickly. That's better for me. So now just getting into that, because now we're in the area because of the pandemic and some other things, we're moving towards more digital and online learning. I really have to talk people into it, because I see people constantly being scammed. Like, for instance, and I'll give you an example. You'll have someone and they'll say, oh, I'm a social media expert. I'm a brand person. And I look at that particular conversation and with a person saying, I'm not getting what I'm supposed to get. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And one of the things that I saw was the person they went to, and I never speak against the other person. That's just bad business. You don't want to speak against anybody. You never know who knows who or whatever. It's just not bad. That's not good business. So what I do, I try to educate, but me personally, I can see that this person who's claiming that they're a social media expert and all of that may have 800 followers on social media, and they may have a website built by Wix or, one of the drag and drop websites, and they declare themselves a brand expert. And that's fine. You strive and you build. Everybody is at a place, but they swear by it, and they charge these astronomical places. And I mean, if people pay it, they pay it. But at the end of the day, if you're really not, or maybe you really think you are based on that, there are questions that I teach people to ask the developer to see if they're qualified to push you to the next level. So those are some of the things that I talk about in my workshop. What to ask a developer to see if they're qualified. You don't have to hire me, but you need to be knowledgeable in what you're doing. I've also seen, like, for instance, these are real life examples. I was told by an associate, and they were saying, I'm going to be on this radio station, and they have about, 200,000 listeners on there, and I'll be able to get on there and do that. And it's going to be on the app, and they have about, 300,000 downloads and everything else like that. And I'm sitting there like, okay. And I said, well, what's the app you're going to be on? So she began to show me the app. So I went to the app store. And I said, how many downloads they told you? It's about 300,000 and whatever else like that. Their wife, sister, cause one of the people they know was a singer or something like that. And they were a prominent person. So I looked on the app itself. And I said, again, how much? 300,000. And I said, really? I said, so how much are they charging to do that? So she began to tell me the price. And price was, I thought, a little steep. And I said, so basically you're paying them for their numbers. Yeah, I'm paying them for the numbers because I don't have the numbers. And I got to start somewhere. And if I have to pay, I have to pay. So I said, well, whoa. Because I had already seen it. I already went to the Google and the Apple store. And people get enamored when they hear that. And I said, well, I'm looking at the numbers here, and it says it's only 5 downloads. And and so her face looked puzzled, like, what? What does that mean? So I turned the phone towards her, and I said, this will tell you the exact amount of people that have downloaded this app. And as it said right here, it's 5. And so we look, and if you ever look in your app store, so if I go to my app store, I have an iPhone, and I also have a Android to do other things that I have. So if I go to that particular page, it'll tell you the rating. And you can tell by the rating. I don't think they give you the download numbers. I'm looking at it now. They tell you the size. They tell you who the seller is. Ratings and reviews. This one has 1 million. So about 1 million people downloaded this app. And it's highly rated. It'll tell you if it's in purchase buying. If I go and look at another one that I've never seen before. This one has 1.6 million. They have a pretty good number of following. I'm gonna look up I'm gonna just put in church I'm literally sitting here with my phone looking in here, and I'm just gonna look up a church really quick. Some of them just, have their phone in here. I'm not going to do the Bibles because that's a lot. Look at this app right here. And their rating is by 387 people. So, genuinely, it's about 387 people on this app. Looking at another one, 262. This is the iPhone. Apple will tell you exactly the number. Android will tell you exactly how many people have downloaded the app. And she got enamored by statistics that they're putting out. Not, people will tell you all day long, yeah, you can advertise on my website. I got about 1 million views. And there's websites where you can go check and put it in there and see, no. And that's about, you can Google, website traffic and a whole bunch of things, and you can just put the URL in there, and it'll give you how many people are going to that website. So you won't get trapped into, false advertisement, because on the internet, you're going to get that. You're going to get scammed. And check it out. Go and get that information. Now, I have smart TV channels, and I have, this podcast in particular, I'm on Pandora, I'm on Spotify, I'm on iHeartRadio, I'm on smart TV networks, Roku, Amazon, and some other ones. And I need to go on TuneIn too. I'll put that in today. So what happens everywhere you're located, but like anybody, I'm still building my numbers. So I'm not going to sit there and falsify, oh, you should listen to me because I have about 50 million people following me. If you didn't know any better and you were just going by the applications that I'm on, you would believe me. You would certainly believe me. I do have over 1 million followers. I do have that. That is true. You can go look at my businesses and all of that combined. You can see that, But that's the thing you want to do. You don't want to take things as face value. Now, people will Google people quickly, but you really need to start looking at numbers, how that statistically works with you, because I'm going to tell you, you'll be up a creek if you don't. So those are the things that I like to teach in the workshops. A lot of the workshops that I do submit to podcasts is visual, because people are visual people. So I tend to do that. But this one in particular is just a podcast. It's just a conversation, just talking about all of the things, all of the nightmares, all of the crazy stuff that I've seen, and then how to take that and not fall into it. From my mistakes to you growing and developing is the key. And there's still some platforms that I'm working on now, like YouTube. I'm working on Instagram, on my personal Instagram, putting time in it along with all of my businesses. So the first thing, what wind up happening to me, I'm in a debate with somebody about social media, and they went on my Instagram, well, you only have 600 people. And I said, yeah, on that page. But hey, look at the other one. And somebody looked at him and said, well, damn, okay, we're going to leave that alone. So, yeah, so you have to be careful. They'll call you on some things, but be prepared for those things as well. Just getting and doing and working on projects is primarily. And then when people tell me, like, I think I told this story before. I feel like I've told this story before about a debate that I got into about social media. And I was talking about social media and marketing, and well, I got two stories, and I'll go back to that one. So, a woman came to me, well, it's nothing really you can tell me. And this is what she's saying. There's really nothing you can tell me about social media. And I said, well, how so? She said, well, first and foremost, I have 50,000 followers. And I looked at her, I said, well, congratulations on that. And she began, and the people around there, like, ooh, okay, I see you. You know that how they get into, like, I see you. So she began talking and, talking over me about social media. And then somebody asked a question and I went into answering. And then, she said something inadvertently opposite of me. And she said, well, how many followers? Well, you're saying this, but like, really, how many followers do you have? And I said, so if we're going to get into it, and after she done, tried to just push me out like I didn't know anything. And I said, well, I have about 1 million. And everybody said, oh my God, are you serious? So her eyes, she was like, well, I clearly doubt it. And I said, well, let's go and just look at it. Everybody pulled out their phones and I gave them all of the social media. And I said, as monetizing, I'm over 6 figures. And so the conversation got a little interesting after that. And I said, and on one of my personal page, without, just my profile page, I have about 13,000 followers. And then on my Duchess Robertson is about 25,000. And then on Black Curls Hair Rock is like 750, and Blackman is 250, and I had some intermediates with about 10, 15, like literally. And I said, and oh, by the way, I never used a payment to get followers on my page. It's purely content provided. I never bought any of them. They're all organic. And at that point in time, she sat there and I don't know, in her face, and my person, I'm my personality. I could literally see her rethinking her life, like in her eyes, like, what did I just do? How do I say that? And she was sitting there, and instead of saying, okay, there is some things I can learn. Well, I have to investigate further if you're the owner. People begin to start laughing like, sis, come on. Like, come on. Because I didn't throw it at her. I thought it was amusing, honestly. And you should always want to know. And I'm listening to her because there probably is something that she knows that I may not know. And when you get into that mindset where there's nothing I can learn from you, then you will always be on the wrong side of growth. No matter how much. And that was one story. And then I remember I was in a group setting, and I'm telling you these stories specifically for business and understanding what will happen and how people will approach you and try to undermine you and try to make you not think that you know what you know. That's why I say this is an opportunity to be educated. And based off of the stories that I'm telling you, these are the things that I have to sit and look and analyze and go back and make sure my stuff is right as well. So I've never met this woman before. And she was supposed to be this motivational speaker. And I was invited there specifically for some work that I did with the NAACP. So me and a friend of mine was there. And some other people I didn't know, and some I did know. And they invited me. And one of the things that I like to do, I like to sit back and not act like I know anything. I've learned a long time ago from my college years that when you say you can do something, people expect more from you. Not to say that you can't hold it, but sometimes be an exploration to people. And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching, and it came to the point where we're like, okay, well, let's design this, and that. So she took me, oh, I can do that. And one of the people there knew I did that work. And she was like, well, I can think of something. So I'm sitting there sketching, putting it out, and then I just turned it around. They're like, oh yeah, that's it right there. So she's looking at me, and she was supposed to be the guru. Oh, well, okay, so yeah, that's good. And so she began to talk again, of course, of subject that I knew. So I basically spoke about it. Oh yeah, you're right. That's cool. So what happened is they said, you know what? How about you guys team up? Which I thought was fair, because it's always good to listen in on stuff and come up with some other stuff. And so, okay, that's fine. That's good. So at this point in time, we're talking over the phone, trying to get some wording together. And she begins to, again, act like she's my boss instead of somebody she's partnering with. So I'm sitting there like, no, that's not going to look right. That's not going to, well, you should do it. No, that's not. So what wind up happening, we butted heads. And that'll happen at a lot of things. But beginning to listen, she could not fathom her not being the expert in everything. So, long story short, you're not going to be an expert in everything, but at least know the basics of things. And it will develop your website. And again, I'll go back to a story I think I talked about in the last podcast where a young lady was telling me how, well, I paid you and you should do what I'm supposed to tell you to do. And I said, well, yeah, but if you're also paying for my expertise, and that's a whole nother conversation when you know what you know and someone gets into that tone, well, I paid you to do it. Do it. Make sure it's done. And then I said to her, based off of what you wanted versus what my expertise in, I don't want to put my hands on it, and I don't want to put my name on it because my name is my brand and reputation. So if this is what you want to do, I did exactly what you wanted to do. Everything is completed, but we can no longer work together. That's another thing that you have to explore when you talk to people, their expectations versus yours. So I make them know if I don't see something. So you really want to make sure people understand that your expectation and put that on the line before you start working with that person, because it will save you a ton. Believe me, it will save you a ton of heartache after the fact. So again, I told a story about someone on their board with the same name as a person who did something illegal, and they automatically got hit because people assume that person was a part of their organization, and they had to go through a whole bunch. And it was basically simply putting a name versus putting an image and a name on the website for transparency. It was a nonprofit. So those are some of the things I've come in contact with people in this business. If you are a business owner, I not only talk about web development, I talk about business in general and how to deal or handle in my position, how I dealt with it. And maybe that can help some other people, but really understanding. Even with my website, I have a, like with PR people, they have an oath that they have to stand by. On your website, you can put an oath that you stand by, for specific people who use excessive profanity to talk about things to you and to indicate what they want done. That is, to me, I'm cutting that off. You're not going to talk to me any kind of way and expect for me to work for you. I would rather give you the money back than you defame me. I did that to a person. Well, I'm going to sue you. How you going to sue me? I gave you the money back. Well, this is... Nope. You're not going to... It's specified in my contract that I can cut the business. Read the wording. Read the wording. So, long story short, whatever he did with his business, he tried to do with his business, and it did not do well. It didn't do well at all. Basically because of his how he treated and talked to people, and there certain things. So I'll talk about some of those things too later on. But I hope that excuse me, this particular podcast will help you understand before you get into business some things you have to do before you have to do for yourself to protect yourself from heartache and dealing with people. Your responsibilities versus defining, just defining what you're doing versus what they're doing, period. Even when you're on your website, and now I'm going into website lingo, you have to clearly define what you want people to do when they get on your website. It's no longer bulletin board material, and that's how people are building their website. They're building their website based off of, if I put all of this stuff there, people will buy into it, and then they wonder why they're not getting a lot of hits on their website. Well, specifically, you're not defining call to action, what you want people to do. You don't have a specific goal in place where you want people to come on there. You want them, if you want them to fill out a form, that should be prominent on your website. That's secondary to everything else, because you primarily want them to fill out a particular form. Either if you want them to do a estimate or whatever else that you want to do on your website, it should be clearly and visible. It should be a form, or it should be a button big and bright that says fill out form. People need to know what to do once they get on your website. It has to be clear. I've seen people with multiple different menu. I try to simplify my menu. If I can get it to 5 menu slots on there, that's perfect. Anything other than that is in a drop down. That's categorized. Where people, I've looked at the analytics on a lot of websites, and I looked at my own personal way I view a website. And a lot of times I skip over things just to look for what I want in particular on the website. So you must understand, if you're a service or anything, I know for my benefit, pricing is always something I look for. If it's a restaurant or anything, I want to know what's on the menu. So I skip everything else and go right to menu. So understanding the behavior of people when they hit your website, of your viewers, is what you want. And how I look at people when I talk to them. What are your goals? And I ask that question, what are your goals? What do you want people to do when they come to your website? And that clearly defines a lot of information, and that will save you. So I'm going to check out. This is Duchess Robinson from 8x10 Design, Duchess.pro. Thank you for listening.